3.7 and 3.5 levels of care. If someone is deemed appropriate and needs to be in the 3.7 level of care, which is the detox level of care, they will enter into that building to get those services until they are cleared to enter into the 3.5 level of care. So that is not for when detox programs are included in residential treatment programs, is not to serve the clients in the residential programs. It's to serve the clients as they enter into the program itself, as they come off the drugs that they were on, and more, and detox really is for alcohol, primarily alcohol, because many people don't know, but alcohol, heroin overdoses can kill you. Heroin withdrawal does not kill you. Alcohol withdrawal can kill you. Benzodiazepine withdrawal can kill you. So those very specific drugs would require that 3.7 level of care to get them stable and ready for the 3.5 level of care.
I just wanted to make a quick comment and maybe ask Seth or Bill, is it helpful for them to describe briefly what a full day looks like to dispel, the concern that there would be these groups of people wandering around? What does it look like when you wake up until when you go to bed?
Sure. In a nutshell, it's really busy. There's not a lot of free time when you come into a treatment program. Everything is very structured. All statistics that are out there is that structure and routine is something that needs to be established for when you leave treatment, for a successful outcome. So part of being in treatment, besides the care that you're getting, is the routine that you're establishing. You wake up at 7 o'clock, you get breakfast, you go to a meditation group at 8 o'clock. Your first group starts at 9 p.m. and goes until 10. Your next group starts at 10 and goes to 11. You may have an hour of free time. During that free time, you have the options of doing some recreational activities that are staffed. You have the options of using the gym. You have the option of working on your treatment plan work, which is assigned to you by your primary counselor. After lunch, you'd have 2 hours of programming right in a row. That would be your primary group with your lead clinician. That would get into your the group work that you do with your primary clinician. After that, you'd have another group from 3 to 4 and another group from 3 to 5. Any resident patient may have 1 hour of free time per day. 5 o'clock usually is dinner time. And then there's programming in the evening as well that might consist of a recovery movie, a presentation by a staff member. Lights out usually are between 10 and 11 o'clock with an hour of free time before them. That hour of free time in the evening time is not outside of the building. There's not outdoor activities in the evening time. That's all done inside. So very busy schedule. Patients usually fall asleep right when their head hits the pillow because they've just had a very emotionally and physically tiring day, and they wake up and they do it again the next day.
Okay, then the other question was regarding the neighborhood committee. This is probably a question for Troy, as far as what kind of say would a neighborhood committee really have, and how do you envision that functioning?
I envision it functioning by creating a group of 5 to 7 and meeting with Seth and Bill and their staff monthly or quarterly if there are issues to bring up, whatever those issues would be. And I think you've met these gentlemen. You can see what their intent is. I think there's been enough neighbors who will at least give me the credit to say that we would make a good faith effort to resolve those. And at the end of the day, they would have the same rights every citizen has. If you've got a group of this many people that is this unhappy 2 years from now, how is that probably going to end for us?
Okay, then the next question was regarding citing a commercial business and setbacks from feedlot. I can answer that. We don't have any. The setbacks that feedlots need to meet are from residences, so from dwellings, residential dwellings. Within ordinance, there is not a required setback from a commercial business to a feedlot. The next question is probably for Troy. Actually, the last two would be where is all the parking going to occur that would accommodate all the staff, patients, and visitors?
Yeah, I don't know if you can, we'll be cutting out Bill, and I was going to say, if you
okay.
could put up the site plan. You'll see that there is a shed in the middle of our yard currently that's used for processing meat and storing and whatever. That building is going away and would be replaced with our parking.
I'll get to an aerial here.
Yeah, I can't see it in that one.
See if I have a dialed out
Okay.
aerial.
There you go, the green roof. Yeah, that's going to be removed.
All right. And then the last question I had written down was your ability to afford the daycare spots that you had offered to hold.
I've had 3 kids. I know what daycare costs. What is our guarantee that I'm going to have staff that would need the daycare? I just think with 50 employees, knowing the makeup and having discussed with people at Ascension, what are the typical daycare needs and facilities of this size? This actually, for the general knowledge here, is not a big facility. Majority of facilities that exist are 100 beds or bigger of this type. But we would be able to budget that and would want to reserve those spots for our staff.
And Mr. Chair, that's all I have for questions that I wrote down as people were commenting.
Amy, can I answer one other question that you actually didn't address that I did feel came up, as a kind of a theme?
Yeah, go ahead. Seth.
So I did hear a lot about really the concern about our clientele and who they are and how they act, and what they're going to be doing while they're there, and what we're going to be doing to keep them from leaving the grounds and doing horrible things to the neighbors. I don't want to diminish or take that question for granted. It is a legitimate question. But I think with some education and with some understanding of who these people are, the question gets answered. These are not bad people that are coming to seek treatment at a place like Autumn Hills. They have a serious and bad illness. And these are the people that have chosen to make a change. These are the people that have chosen to not do drugs and not drink alcohol. They make that commitment before they even come to us. And when we say that we're not serving the Rule 25 population, there's some, the way I feel of it, there's some pluses and minuses to that. I recognize that this means that people who are uninsured and can't afford commercial insurance are not going to be able to seek care at our facility. I don't love that, right? But it also means that oftentimes people who are going to treatment through state-funded means are also court mandated to go to treatment. And those are the people that really don't want to be there and aren't taken seriously. They're doing it because it's either that or go to jail. So that does tell you a little bit about the clients that we will be serving, is that they are willingly coming to us to make a change in their lives. And I think someone also mentioned about how the most acute and probably tenuous moments of that transition from using drugs to being off drugs is the initial phases of the detoxification, and the cloudiness of the mind and the irrational and potentially dangerous behaviors that can go through that. That is, again, why a facility like ours has a detox facility attached to it. That detox facility is not a facility that you can just get up and walk out of, right? That detox facility is much more like a closed unit medical facility, where they are getting 24 hours, a day care by medical professionals. So treated for all the detoxification aspects that they will be going through. And overall, another thing that's important when we're talking about the response time, another legitimate concern, how long it will take for EMS to get there in the case of an emergency, is we will also be 24 hours a day staffed by medical professionals, by RNs, LPNs that will be there, 24 hours a day throughout the night for any emergency services that might come up, to make sure that those people are doing okay while we await emergency, higher levels of care if that is needed, right? But I think my first point is the one that I really wanted to make, is that these are the ones that are coming to get help. These are the ones that are coming to be sober, committing to not use drugs and alcohol. And that's what our campus will be, a place for people to not use drugs and alcohol anymore.
Okay, anybody else on planning board have any more questions? Or are you ready for the questions? Okay, we'll move on to our criteria questions.
Give me just a second.
Okay, the first one, I'll start with Brent. The use will not put excessive burden on roadways, utilities, and public facilities such as parks and schools.
I'm going to kind of break this down. I mean, as far as the burden on the roadways or the utilities, I don't think it's going to put an excessive burden on that. But public facilities, such as parks or schools, I'm going to broaden that out. I think it could put a burden on medical, on EMS, on law enforcement, and listening to concerns of the many folks here that spoke tonight, as well as the sheriff. I do have some concerns about the excess burden that may potentially be placed on them.
Dave Stish, you have anything to add?
I'd agree with that. I too wanted to add in fire, police, ambulance, those kind of services that would be stressed. We really didn't ask about insuring. I assume you have to have insurance, like everybody has insurance, liability, fire, whatever. I'm wondering how you get that when you're that far out, and with those strikes against you, 20 minutes out, 40-minute round trip to town. You don't need to answer that question.
Okay.
Marv, you have anything to add?
What I wanted to add to is, there will be a burden to the roadway, but not excessive. But also, would impede, we talked about the schools, it would impede the daycare over there. And that, and in addition, I agree with the rest of what the staff has stated here.
Dave Brucher.
I think Brent stated everything very succinctly. Not a burden on the roadways, but I do believe that that question also included public facilities, and being as it is where it is, and I would say that it would create a burden on utilities.
Okay, then my comment would be on that question is, I agree with what Brett stated, what you guys all stated. One thing to think about when you're voting, though, I do agree that there's going to be more burden maybe on some of them things, but is it excessive? Like Marvin said, so that's just something to think about. There will be some burden, but is it excessive?
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep. So question 2. We'll go to Dave Stish on this one. The request will not be detrimental to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for uses predominant in the area.
Okay, we had a very good representation of the public and how they use their property and their concerns about their uses of their property. Brent had a really good question for Amy earlier about the IUP and CUP that are already on the property. I assume all 6 parcels, all 335.02 acres are affected by these IUPs, CUPs, correct, Amy?
That's correct.
How can property have conflicting uses on that property? Assuming that at least some of us think that there's a conflict between a game farm and and this proposal, that there's a conflict between a venue and this proposal. You seem to indicate that these have to sunset on their own from lack of use. Can they be terminated otherwise?
Mr. Chair, someone can certainly discontinue and notify the county that they're discontinuing and wish to discontinue their conditional use permit or interim use permit at any time. That gets recorded against the property. So they wouldn't just have to run out over a year's time. They can certainly request that those be rescinded.
Okay, so I think that was pertinent to the question on the use of property, how they're planning to use it and how the neighbors use it. That's all I've got for now on that one.
Okay. I'm gonna jump ahead before I forget my train of thought, okay? Just one thing to think about, I think, if this moves forward, you guys know me, I'm not big on putting all these conditions on, but I think one that I think would be ease of mind and kind of in the transition, I just think that maybe one of them would be no firearms allowed. So then that means if you're gonna actually discontinue your hunting operation, if you're gonna end up harvesting them animals in the end through hunting, it'd have to be bow and arrow, pretty primitive. So I think that maybe that would be a condition, something to think about if that would happen. That would just help alleviate some of the things, I think.
We would agree to that.
So then, along with what Dave, we're having this conversation here, detrimental to the use and enjoyment of the property. One thing we got to think about is what do we do with this property if we don't do this? I don't know. I heard a few questions and comments through here, and I don't mean to pick on anybody because I'm not pushing that way, but just to open minds and see what you guys think. I think it was Chris Gloss that said, you drive down and turn left after the treatment center, okay? But what would it be like? A lot of people are here supporting ag and all that, and some people complain about the lights and this and that, but what would the thoughts be as you turn right at the hog barn? Or if it's a big dairy barn, a big farm with all the lights and stuff too. We're in ag, so we got to think about them things. I'm not saying I'm for or against this. I'm just trying to just put just things to think about. That's all. So when we're going through these different things, my biggest thing with it is, I don't know. What do we do with it? That's the thing. Public comment is done. Dave, you spoke. Marvin Treadle.
Well, would it be detrimental to others? Well, it could be detrimental we talked about, majority of us in the board, I'm on the farm. I like the area to bring up the children where they could run around freely. They have a plan in place here that the clients aren't running around freely, but could it create an issue here? It definitely could. And where do we find the business? There is definitely a need for this, and where do we find a balance in between this? So I can't give a good answer, yes or no, on this one.
Dave Brucher.
All these questions kind of tie together, Mr. Chairman, and it would not be detrimental to the use and enjoyment of the other property, immediate vicinity. Well, I'm going to jump right ahead. This is a for-profit corporation here. I just looked up their financials on Ernst & Young. A $48 billion corporation here is according to Ernst & Young.
Got the wrong company.
Ascension?
Yeah, they're not $48 billion company. This is a small, not small, but they're certainly not $48 billion.
Ascension Financial statements and supplementary information from Ernst and Young.
Bill or
Ascension
Seth?
Consolidated Financial Statements, Ascension Health. By Ernst and Young. Board of
Ascension
Directors,
Recovery Services.
Ascension Health
Dave,
Alliance.
just get to the point.
Point is, they're a large corporation, commercial corporation. Just on that part, they went from 41 to 48 billion in 1 year, and I don't think that fits into that neighborhood.
Just for clarification, that must be a different company. The name of the company is Ascension Recovery Services.
Brent Lindgren, you have anything to add to this one?
I think I'd just tag along with what Marvin started to allude to, but impede the normal and orderly development in the area. I think it potentially could impede the normal development in the area to the other residents that talked about their properties as well. So I'll just leave it at that.
And something else, Dave?
Yes, thank you. You know, I was on the board when the last IUP was granted for the venue. I wasn't on the board when the CUP for the game reserve was granted, and I realized there was a fair bit of controversy at the time that went in. Quite a bit of neighborhood resistance, but as one of the neighbors stated, you know, doesn't really notice it anymore, or didn't notice it anymore. You know, a game farm, raising deer, shooting deer, boy, that fits into an ag setting. That seems an appropriate ag use. Add a wedding venue so that you can, you know, maybe leverage the use of these nice facilities that are out there, and also bring some enjoyment to people just on a very, you know, intermittent basis. They weren't expecting a lot of that, but it sure seemed to be a good use and a good fit. Neighbors seemed to agree. They didn't show up in force, had a few concerns, but were allowing. Now, of this, you know, we just had a rather long hearing on a residential plat development that was eventually denied because, I mean, these are residences, 19 residents in a plat that were denied a rezone because of ag. You know, just an ag area. We don't want any more residences. By golly, there's 50 residents here, plus 10 to 20, 30 staff on hand all the time. Sure seems a conflict to me, especially given where we just were a short couple of weeks ago. So I'd like to add that thought in.
Okay, question 3. The use, in the opinion of the Planning Commission, is reasonably related to the existing land use and the environment, groundwater, surface water, and air quality in the surrounding area will not be adversely affected by the proposed use. Marvin?
Well, I think we elaborated on, possible contamination of the soil, but it sounds like MPCA would be involved in this here. But when you talk about this adversely affected, when Dave elaborated on the primary agricultural, I think it would be adversely affecting the agricultural area.
Okay, Dave Brucher?
I don't have anything further to add. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know how to really answer that first part of this, but when it comes to the groundwater, surface water, and air quality in the surrounding area, I think that there's enough protocols and rules and different things that and agencies that'll be working as far as the sewer plan, just the way they handle if there's any drugs or something that gets in the system. I do think that the groundwater and surface water and air quality in the surrounding area would be okay. the use, the planning commission is reasonably related to the existing land use. That's a little tougher one to add on to, but, I don't know, Brent, do you have anything else to add to that?
I do not.
Dave Stish?
I've had a question for Amy that I haven't asked all night. Section 604.7 of the ordinance specifically states under IUPs this treatment center. How did that get in our ordinance? Was that handed down from state to us? Why is it there? How is it there?
Mr. Chair, originally that was allowed with a conditional use permit. And then when the county adopted the ability to put some uses under interim use, it shifted. That use shifted to interim use instead of conditional use. That use has been allowed in the ag zoning district for long before my time. So that has been a use that has been a part of the allowable uses under conditional use permit within the ordinance for many, many years.
State to us or just in our
Nope,
ordinance?
that is county discretion as far as what uses are allowed in each zoning district.
Okay. Yeah. Reasonably related to existing land use. Existing land use is a game refuge, a game farm, and a wedding event venue. How is this related to that? Not at all. And how is it related to the land use around it? It isn't. Is it allowed? I guess it is. But is it relevant to this area? Should it be allowed in this area? Only the commissioners know.
Okay. Okay, so question 4. The use is consistent with the purposes of the zoning ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use. Dave Brucher.
No, it's not. I think I kind of stated my point earlier. It's a commercial for-profit. Doesn't fit with the neighborhood.
Okay, my thought would be is consistent with the purpose of the zoning ordinance. I don't know, it's in the zoning ordinance that through the right permits, you can do this. Maybe it's wrong, I don't know, but it is permittable. That's why we're in this process. So, is it consistent with the purpose of the zoning ordinance and the purpose of the zoning district? Through the different ordinance and plans, yeah, it is. But is it right? I don't know. Brent, you have anything to add to that?
I just had my notes down here. It's, it's ag land, and we've been using that in the past, and it's not necessarily suited for commercial residential treatment. So I don't think it fits.
Dave Stish, you have anything to add?
Well, if we turn to the staff report, applicable comprehensive plan goals and objectives, it's kind of an answer to question 4 and 5 here. If we just look at those, if we look under A1, it's ensure the county provides and protects ag. We're very familiar with that one.
Yeah.
Objective 6 under A1 is identify areas most suitable for ag uses. And adopt policies and amendments that best protect from encroachment by conflicting uses, achieve an appropriate balance between people and certain businesses, and the need to accommodate ag in these rural areas. Goal A2. And objective one under that, identify areas appropriate for both ag and limited residential and commercial uses. Such areas also, whenever possible, serve as a buffer between ag, mining, and forestry uses. Some areas, perhaps a buffer can be had around a facility like this. Can't here. I don't know what that buffer would be. Would it be state land that isn't used by residents in the area or ag in the area? A buffer between this and ag land, it's right there. In fact, they plan on continuing to farm right in the backyard of the facility. Conflict.
Marvin, you have anything to add?
Just to piggyback off what Dave stated, I agree with that totally. But I want to reiterate that, I think we all here see a need for a rehab center. We don't have one in Morrison County. Where do we put them? And it would be an asset to the community. But it's in conflict in this area with the ag properties, and it's just, in my opinion, not the right location for it.
Okay, Dave Brucher.
I have nothing further to add. I think you've all stated it very clearly. Thank you.
Okay. The use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan or the water plan of the county. I'll start that off. I don't think it's in conflict with the water plan, but then what Dave was reading off, with the comprehensive plan, possibly. I don't know. Help me out with that, Dave.
Yeah, I guess we could go further down the line here on the objectives and goals stated, that are most relevant to this application that were in the staff report. Seek opportunities to encourage and support local entrepreneurs. We cited that I cited that in the last one. Certainly an entrepreneur here. Call attention to physical and human resources as business attraction tool. We don't seem to have them. Ensure that land use regulations allow for a variety of businesses, but that they have adequate infrastructure and services, which we're not certain they do. We're pretty well thinking they don't. And they will not create unnecessary conflict with other land uses. Limit this to areas capable of handling such development. Focus on accommodating business in unincorporated areas of the county that are best suited for rural settings. Maybe this is best suited for a rural setting. Plenty of testimony that don't feel that way. So, lots of conflict with the stated goals and objectives.
Brent, do you have anything to add?
With the water plan of the county and the comprehensive plan, there was some talk about the wastewater and the concern of the treatment of that, although I think some of that has been addressed both by Amy and by MPCA if it needs to be. There is the possibility of a second well having to be drilled for potential water use, which could be in conflict with the water needed for the agricultural development in the area. So I think that potentially has some relevance here as well.
Marvin?
I have nothing to add.
Mr. Brucher?
I have nothing to add that's pertinent to this question.
Okay. You guys ready to vote on the questions? Okay, question 1. The use will not put an excessive burden on roadways, utilities, and public facilities such as parks and schools. Brent?
No.
Dave? Stish?
Yes.
Marvin Treadle?
Yes.
Dave Brucher?
No.
Myself, Clint Catherine, is yes. Number 2, the request will not be detrimental to the use and enjoyment of the other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding vacant property for uses predominant in the area. Dave Stish.
No.
Marvin Treadle.
No.
Dave Brucher.
No.
Myself, Clint Catherine, is no. Brent Lindgren.
No.
Okay, question 3. The use in the opinion of the planning commission is reasonably related to the existing land use and the environment, groundwater, surface water, and air quality in the surrounding area will not be adversely affected by the proposed use. Marvin Treadle.
No.
Dave Brucher.
No.
Myself, Clint Catherine, is no. Brent Lindgren.
No.
Dave Stish.
No.
The use is consistent with the purposes of the zoning ordinance and the purposes of the zoning district in which the applicant intends to locate the proposed use. Dave Brucher.
No.
Myself is no. Brent Lindgren.
No.
Dave Stish.
No.
Marvin Treadle.
No.
Okay, the use is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan or the water plan for the county. Myself, Clint Catherine, is yes. Brent Lindgren,
No.
Dave Stish,
No.
Marvin Treadle,
No.
Dave Brucher.
No.
We only have question 1 that was in the affirmative, so. Somebody have a motion?
Go ahead. I move to deny.
Can't deny.
Okay.
To recommend.
I move to recommend moving ahead.
Is there a second?
I didn't understand the motion.
I move to move forward to say yes to our vote.
Mr. Chair? If I can clarify, are you making a motion to recommend denial?
Yes,
To the
that's what I
county board?
said. I think that's what I said originally.
Okay. There's second.
I'd second the motion to deny it moving forward.
Okay, there's a motion seconded, made and seconded to recommend to the commissioners that they deny this application. All in favor, say aye. Clint Catherine, myself, yes. Brent Lindgren,
Yes.
Dave Stish, Marvin Treadle,
Yes.
David Brucher.
Yes.
Okay. So it's up to the commissioners, and that'll be November 9th. You guys would go against them and.
So this will be at their regular meeting. They start at 9 a.m. I'm never first on the agenda. And so the agenda will come out on Friday. And so you'll know what time that I'm on the agenda at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for being real professional and getting through this meeting. So we're gonna take like a real quick 2-minute break. Oh, sorry. Yeah,
You do the minutes and adjourn?
yeah,
As I felt the last time,
yeah. Well, we'll just talk about this, 'cause who cares?
everything else.
Okay, board, we're gonna approve our minutes. Is there a motion to
I make a motion to approve our previous minutes.
I second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion made and seconded to approve the October 12th minutes. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any new business?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
Any old business?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor,
Second
say
that.
aye. Motion made and seconded, adjourn. All say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Dave Stish. Okay, meeting adjourned.
9:40.